It happened in the middle of a crowded gala, the kind where laughter floats above the clinking of glasses, and a sea of glittering gowns blends with sharp suits under crystal chandeliers. Amelia's heart was pounding so violently she could feel it in her throat. Her ex was here. The man who had once charmed her with sweet promises, then shattered her with cruelty, had just spotted her across the room. His smile was the same smug, predatory curve she remembered all too well. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but the crowd was too thick, the exits too far. Then, in a heartbeat decision that made no sense and yet was the only thing she could think of, she dove into the shadow of a tall man in a black tuxedo. She crouched low, gripping the fabric of his trousers in desperation, practically hiding between his legs like a terrified child clinging to a pillar. She didn't know who he was, didn't care, until she looked up, and her gaze met the amused, curious eyes of a man who radiated quiet power. She didn't know it yet, but she had just collided with the man whose life and heart she was about to change forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the magic of unexpected meetings, make sure to like this video, share it with friends, subscribe to Stories Collection, and leave a comment about the most surprising way you've ever met someone special. Your interaction helps us bring you more heart-touching stories like this. He didn't move at first, simply tilting his head slightly, studying her with a look that was half confused, half protective. When Amelia's trembling form registered, his expression shifted, the faintest frown of concern. She stayed there, her breath coming in shallow bursts, the perfume of strangers' colognes mingling with her fear. The footsteps of her ex drew nearer, weaving through the crowd. Her mind flashed back to nights of shouting, of doors slammed, of her voice silenced. She didn't realize she had pressed herself closer to the man's legs until she felt the subtle, reassuring gesture, his hand lowering casually as if resting on the back of a chair, but actually forming a quiet shield between her and the room. When her ex finally appeared in their corner of the room, the stranger shifted his stance, his voice deep and controlled as he greeted someone behind Amelia, deliberately blocking the man's view of her. The exchange was brief, the tension sharp, and within minutes, her ex moved away, clearly unsettled. Amelia's breath released in a trembling rush. She didn't understand why this stranger had helped her, why he'd stepped into a role he wasn't obligated to play. She only knew she had just been pulled out of a moment that could have wrecked her night, maybe even her spirit. The man introduced himself as Daniel Hayes, a name she vaguely recognized from headlines about billion-dollar deals and business empires. He didn't mention his wealth, though, he simply asked if she was all right. And something about the softness beneath his strong tone made her nod before she could think. He didn't press for details, didn't force her to relive what had just happened. Instead, he asked if she'd like to sit somewhere quieter. In the soft-lit corner of the lounge, they spoke, or rather, he let her speak when she was ready. She found herself telling him fragments of her life, pieces she hadn't voiced to anyone in months. How she had left a controlling relationship with nothing but a suitcase. How she was rebuilding, one small step at a time. The night unfolded gently. He never crossed lines, never made her feel small. In fact, Daniel listened in a way that made her feel seen, not pitied. He told her small pieces of his own life, how his success came at the cost of people assuming they knew him, when in truth, very few did. As the gala faded and people drifted away, Amelia realized she didn't want to leave his presence. But she did, because she didn't believe in fairy tales. Not for her. Yet Daniel wasn't done. The next day, she received flowers, not roses or the cliché extravagant display, but a simple bouquet of wildflowers with a note. Sometimes, the most beautiful things grow where no one expects them to. Over the weeks that followed, they saw each other often, sometimes at lunch, sometimes just walking through the park. He never pushed for more than she could give. Slowly, she learned to laugh again, to trust again. And somewhere in that steady, gentle care, Daniel realized he wasn't just helping her heal, he was falling for her. Not in the instant, infatuated way of a passing crush, but in the deep, rooted way that comes from seeing someone's soul. Months later, her ex tried to confront her again. This time, she didn't hide. She stood tall, Daniel by her side, not as her savior, but as someone who believed in her strength. And when the man walked away for the last time, Amelia felt a quiet victory hum through her chest. Their love story wasn't built on rescue, but on respect. On two people meeting by pure accident in the strangest way possible, and deciding to stay in each other's lives. Daniel often teased her about their first meeting, calling it, "the moment you ambushed my heart." And Amelia would laugh, because somehow, it was true. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it so others can feel the same warmth, and subscribe to Stories Collection for more emotional, life-changing tales. Your support helps keep these stories alive and reaching more people who need them. Speech balloon special request to comment. Have you ever met someone in the most unexpected way, and they ended up changing your life? Share your story below, I'd love to read it. Alright, let's dive deeper and make this story richer, more cinematic, and emotionally gripping so it feels like a full 6,000-word YouTube narrative. I'll keep the same smooth, paragraph-based style, but we'll expand every scene, giving it texture, emotional weight, and a slow, steady build of suspense and connection. It happened in the middle of a crowded gala, the kind where soft jazz floated above the clinking of champagne glasses, and glittering chandeliers spilled golden light over an ocean of designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, old money, and polished ambition. But for Amelia Carter, none of that mattered. All she could focus on was the suffocating rush of panic squeezing her chest. She had been laughing politely at some stranger's comment when it happened. She saw him. Across the room, standing like a shadow she thought she'd left in another life, was her ex. That familiar smirk, the one that used to charm her in their early days before it became a weapon, curled at the edge of his lips. His eyes locked on her, unblinking, predatory. And in that moment, all the noise of the gala dimmed to a low hum in her ears. She could hear her own heartbeat thundering like a warning drum. Her body reacted before her mind caught up. She turned, weaving between clusters of guests, her heels clicking against the marble floor like frantic whispers. She didn't have a plan, just one overwhelming need: get away. But the crowd was too thick, the exits too far. And then, like a desperate swimmer clinging to driftwood, she spotted him, a tall man in a perfectly cut black tuxedo, broad shoulders and an air of calm authority that seemed untouched by the chaos of the room. She didn't think, she just acted. In one impossible, ungraceful motion, she ducked into the shadow between his legs. Crouching low, gripping the fabric of his trousers as if the very act of holding on would make her invisible. It was ridiculous, embarrassing, but survival doesn't care about dignity. Her breath was shallow, her pulse loud in her ears. Then she made the mistake of looking up. He was looking down at her, one dark brow slightly raised, but not in mockery, more like curiosity. His eyes were warm, steady, and almost protective. In the seconds that passed, Amelia knew she had just done something outrageous. She didn't know who he was, but she knew instinctively that this man wasn't ordinary. And she didn't realize it then, but she had just stepped, quite literally, into the path of the man who would change everything. Speech balloon. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the magic of unexpected meetings, make sure to like this video, share it with friends, subscribe to Stories Collection, and leave a comment about the most surprising way you've ever met someone special. Your interaction helps us bring you more heart-touching stories like this. The footsteps she'd been running from drew nearer. The stranger didn't ask questions. He shifted slightly, his tall frame becoming a wall of expensive fabric and quiet strength. One hand lowered, resting casually on the edge of a nearby table, but Amelia realized it was positioned to shield her from view. Her ex's voice cut through the air like a blade. He was speaking to someone just beyond them, but Amelia could feel his presence, the way she used to feel it in the small apartment they once shared, long before it became a cage. The man she was hiding behind moved with calculated ease, subtly adjusting his position until her ex's line of sight was completely blocked. His voice, when he finally spoke, was deep and unhurried, addressing someone else entirely, as if Amelia's presence was the most natural thing in the world. Within moments, the footsteps retreated, swallowed by the crowd. Only then did Amelia realize her fists were clenched into the fabric of his trousers. She quickly released him, stepping back with a muttered apology. The man didn't flinch. Instead, he gave her a brief, assessing look, not invasive, but searching, and asked quietly, "Are you all right?" That was when she recognized him. Daniel Hayes. Billionaire. Media whispers painted him as ruthless in business, private in life. Yet here he was, offering her space instead of interrogation. When she nodded, unsure whether she meant it, he gestured toward the quieter lounge area off the main ballroom. There, away from the noise, she felt her shoulders loosen slightly. He didn't demand an explanation. He didn't push. Instead, he asked if she'd like a glass of water, and waited until she spoke. At first, she gave him fragments, how she had left a controlling relationship a year ago, how she was trying to rebuild, how being here tonight was supposed to be a fresh step forward. But when she saw the concern in his eyes wasn't pity, her words came more easily. Daniel listened, really listened, in a way that made her feel heard for the first time in a long time.